She walked into the hotel lobby carrying a worn backpack, dressed in jeans and a faded hoodie. Nothing about her screamed wealthy or important. She just needed a quiet place to rest after a long road trip. But before she could even approach the front desk, two staff members stopped her. They didn't ask if she had a reservation. They didn't greet her. They just looked her up and down, whispered to each other, and told her she wasn't welcome there. Their reason? She didn't look like the kind of guest they wanted. She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She just walked out of that hotel, heart pounding, but not from embarrassment, from something else, something bigger. Because what they didn't know was who she really was and what she was about to do. This wasn't just any woman. She had built something quietly behind the scenes. She had spent years working odd jobs, studying business late into the night, sleeping in her car when she had to. And now, the girl they judged for looking poor was sitting on a growing fortune and a game-changing idea. What happened after that moment in the lobby would shock everyone involved, because she didn't just return, she came back with an offer. One that would flip the script on the entire chain. But why did she choose that asterisk hotel? What drove her to make such a bold move? And how did the staff react when they learned the truth? You're about to find out. She hadn't grown up with much. Her parents worked long hours just to keep the lights on. Vacations were out of the question, and hotel stays. That was a luxury they couldn't even imagine. But even as a kid, she would walk past fancy hotels and wonder what it felt like to stay in one, to be welcomed, to be seen. She promised herself that one day she wouldn't just walk into one, she'd own it. The road there wasn't easy. She started with small gigs, cleaning houses, working in diners, selling handmade crafts online. Every dollar she made went toward online courses, business books, and warm and welcoming. Guests loved it. One property turned into 2, then 5, then 10. Over the years, she quietly built a strong, independent brand in the hospitality space, all without outside investors. But she never forgot the feeling of being judged for how she looked, or that moment in the hotel lobby when two strangers decided she didn't belong. What they didn't know was that the building they managed was under quiet financial pressure. The chain had been looking for new investors, and she had been watching, waiting, until the moment was right, and that moment had just arrived. But she wasn't there for revenge, not exactly. As she continued to expand her small rental business, she started to see the cracks in the hotel industry. Despite its polished exterior, many hotel chains were struggling with outdated management practices, poor customer service, and declining standards. The owners of the hotel she had been kicked out of weren't immune. They had a reputation for treating guests and employees poorly, especially those who didn't fit their image. It was a culture that had been accepted for years, but it was something that could disrupt the entire hotel industry if done right. The hotel chain she'd been rejected from was the perfect place to start. She knew she had the capital, the expertise, and the drive, but it wasn't just about making money. It was about proving a point. She wanted to change the way the industry worked, to show that quality and hospitality mattered more than appearances. But as she delved deeper into the chain's finances, she discovered something troubling. The hotel was in serious debt. The management had been hiding financial issues for months, hoping a quick investment would save them. But investors were pulling out, and the doors were closing faster than they realized. The clock was ticking. She had to act fast, but the risks were high. What would happen when she made her move? Would the owners welcome her, or would they fight back in ways she never expected? She decided to make her move. She had studied the chain's finances in detail. She knew exactly where their weaknesses were, and she understood what they needed to stay afloat. The pressure from investors was mounting, and she had the perfect opportunity to step in. But this wouldn't be a simple buyout. She had no interest in just writing a check and walking away. She had a vision, a complete transformation of how the hotel chain operated from the ground up. She reached out to the owners with an offer that seemed too good to ignore, a partnership. She would invest the necessary funds to save the business, but only if she was given full control over operations. They balked at first. The idea of a stranger taking over their legacy was too much to swallow. But her proposal was tempting, and with no better option in sight, they reluctantly agreed to meet. As the day of the meeting approached, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The hotel chain's executives had begun to grow more distant, their responses colder. The owners, once eager, now seemed hesitant, perhaps even resentful. She knew they weren't just going to hand over control without a fight. And as the final details of the deal were being negotiated, she learned that a rival investor, someone with deep pockets and influence, had begun circling the deal. They knew about her intentions and were prepared to swoop in and take the chain from under her. The stakes had never been higher. She had to act fast, but with time running out, the question remained: would her plan succeed, or would she be shut out once again? As the rival investor closed in, she realized something she hadn't considered before. There was more to this than just money. The hotel chain's owners, desperate and scared, had been keeping more secrets than she knew. When she dug deeper, she found that the debts were only the beginning. There were under-the-table deals, corrupt contracts, and shady connections that ran far deeper into the industry than she ever imagined. The rival investor wasn't just after profit, they were after control. Control of the entire market, not just a single chain of hotels. Suddenly, everything felt like it was slipping away. This wasn't just a business deal anymore. It was a battle for the future of the hospitality industry, and she was caught in the middle. The hotel owners had been playing a dangerous game, and she was now fully entangled in their web. She knew if she moved too fast, they'd shut her out for good. But if she hesitated, the rival investor would swoop in and take everything, leaving her with nothing. As the final meeting drew closer, she learned of a last-minute development. One of the hotel's biggest shareholders had been quietly backing the rival investor. It was a direct betrayal, a calculated move to push her out of the picture entirely. The stakes had just escalated beyond anything she could have imagined. The only way to survive now was to play a much riskier game and make an unexpected move that no one would see coming. But was she ready to take that chance? The day of the final negotiation arrived, and the room was tense. She sat across from the hotel owners and the rival investor, feeling the weight of every moment. The rival investor, a smooth-talking corporate mogul, smiled confidently, his eyes glinting with the certainty of victory. He had the financial backing, the influence, and the power to crush her. But she had something he didn't: resolve. With a steady breath, she made her move. Instead of focusing on the immediate deal, she revealed her trump card. She had secretly been working with several of the hotel chain's long-term employees, the ones who've been overlooked and mistreated, the ones who have first-hand knowledge of the company's darkest secrets. They had gathered evidence of corruption, mismanagement, and illegal activities that could bring the entire chain crashing down. She didn't just come to negotiate, she came to expose the truth. As she laid the documents on the table, the room fell silent. The rival investor's face turned pale as the weight of the situation hit him. His smile faded, and panic began to rise. The owners, realizing how much they stood to lose, began to question their own loyalty to him. But the twist? The owners, who had once looked down on her, made an unexpected choice. They sided with her, not because of the evidence, but because they saw in her the very future they had been too blind to embrace. She didn't just get the deal, she got their trust. And with that, she took control. The rival investor walked out, defeated, and the hotel chain was hers. As she looked out the window, the realization hit. This wasn't just about hotels. It was about changing the system, and this was only the beginning. As the dust settled, the hotel chain began a new chapter, one that felt completely different. The changes she made weren't just cosmetic, they ran deep. Staff were treated with respect and offered growth opportunities, while guests experienced a level of care and personalization that was missing before. It wasn't about luxury or flashy amenities. It was about a genuine, welcoming atmosphere that made people feel valued. Word spread quickly, and soon the chain was thriving again, but this time under her leadership. The former owners, who had once dismissed her, now came to her for advice, their pride chipped away. They saw how she had turned everything around, how her vision was paying off. And in that moment, she realized the ultimate lesson: the power of persistence, the strength in staying true to who you are, and the importance of fighting for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against you. But she wasn't finished yet. Her success in the hotel industry was only the beginning. As her reputation grew, she began looking at other opportunities, other industries where she could apply the same principles. She knew the world wasn't always fair, but she also knew that with hard work, determination, and a refusal to let anyone define her worth, anything was possible. The once dismissed girl, who was turned away for looking poor, had transformed not only a hotel chain, but an entire industry. And as she looked out from her office window, the future felt limitless. She had only just begun to change the world.